Welcome, everybody. This is Amanda Larson from 20 Over 10. I'm Associate Director of Digital Marketing. I've also got here with me today Brian Hart. Brian is the founder and president of Flackable. And we're excited today to be talking to you all about how you can earn and leverage public relations success specifically for financial advisors. So we've got a lot of ground to cover today, and we've got about an hour with everybody. So I want to just take care of some housekeeping items before we get started. So you'll see within your Zoom panel, you have an option to chat with us and insert Q&As. So definitely we encourage you to ask any questions, any comments that you have along the way. Definitely feel free to post them in the chat box or in the Q&A panel. The chat box will be public to everybody who's participating in today's webinar, and the Q&A panel will be more of a private discussion between Brian, myself, and you as a participant. So please pop your questions in there. And before we get started, if you guys could just kind of post in the chat box that you can hear me and you can see our screen okay, that would be great, just so we know everybody can hear us and see our presentation. Awesome. Great. Sounds like everybody is able to hear us and see us, Brian. So I think we should be good to go. Before we get started, I'll let Brian do a quick introduction of himself. We're excited to have him here with us today. If you're unaware of Flackable and who they are, Brian is the founder and president of Flackable. They're committed to providing communications, counsel, and services and public relations services specifically to those in the financial industry. So Brian, with that, I will turn it over to you and let you take it over.
Amanda, thanks so much. And thanks everybody for joining. So as Amanda said, today we'll be talking about how to earn and leverage PR success specifically for financial advisors. So I want to start off just by giving a little bit of background on myself, my firm, and some of the work that we do with advisors. So I started my career in corporate retirement sales. From there, I went on to get a number of licenses, and that's really where I started to identify the problem that advisors had building their own brands and distinguishing themselves from the competition. When you're up against the types of regulatory hurdles that you encounter that are very unique to advisors, it can become a real dilemma. And some people innately know how to get themselves out there and build a brand and market themselves. Other people really need a lot of guidance to get to that point. So from taking that experience working in corporate retirement sales, I moved on to work for a big financial public relations agency up in New York City. And there I got to work with a number of larger national financial brands like Nationwide Financial, Cetera, a number of mid-sized asset managers, a handful of RIAs. And again, it was during that experience where I kept encountering the same dilemmas with some of the smaller advisory firms who were really having trouble distinguishing themselves. Now, with them, I saw, a lot of the advisory firms that were out there knew that they needed public relations, but when they talked to the big New York agencies, they were scared off by those big New York price tags, as they should be. So it's really, during that experience where I saw that there really weren't a lot of great solutions out there for advisors, who were on a budget, but who needed that type of branding, that type of third-party credibility to distinguish themselves for their competitors, something that made sense for their budgets, something that not just helped them earn third-party credibility and earn press, but that took it a step further and helped them leverage it and translate it into real business success. So that's where the concept of Flackable came from. And about 4 years ago is when I left that firm, I went independent and I founded Flackable. So we're now based in Center City, Philadelphia. we work primarily with advisors, and our advisors are all over the country. We've worked with solo advisors. We've worked with larger groups of advisors. We do some work with fintech. We do some work with other professional services firms. But by and large, the advisor space is really our specialty and really what I built this model for. So in addition to the work that I do with Flackable, I write a weekly online column for Inc. magazine. During my career, I've represented, again, like I mentioned before, a number of larger financial brands. We work with advisors all over the country. And I think that's a good way to set the context for the conversation that we're going to be having today. So I want to start off by talking about third-party credibility, how to earn it. So earning press recognition is going to be the next item we talk about. Leveraging press is a big component that we're going to cover. And then I want to finish up on how to implement a PR strategy. And I really want to leave you all with real actionable items that you can take to begin building that type of press recognition, or if you've dabbled with it a little bit, giving you some guidelines on how you can make it a very steady part of your brand, of your public communications, and of your overall business development process. So let's start by talking about third-party credibility. First off, what is it? So third-party credibility is, the best way to really summarize it is it's generating recognition, perhaps endorsements, just gaining credibility from outside sources. So with your own marketing, if you're doing email blasts, if you're paying for advertising, that's essentially you going out to the market and telling them that you're an expert in a given area, telling them what your services are. You're telling them, that you are better than the competition. With third-party credibility, it's not you going out there telling people how great you are. It's you getting recognition in the press, winning awards, positioning yourself so that other people are saying how good you are at what you do. Other people are validating your expertise. And it has a powerful impact, especially for financial advisors. You're in a regulatory environment where there are a lot of limitations on how you can position your brand and market yourself. But by gaining third-party credibility, it's a proven way to find compliant practices within earning third-party credibility, that you can accomplish a lot of those goals and overcome some of the obstacles that you're naturally going to encounter in a highly regulated industry. So with third-party credibility, what you're looking to accomplish is legitimizing your brand, building trust with your community, building trust within your industry, and expanding your overall visibility. Now, when we talk about the types of forms that third-party credibility can take, it's press coverage. So with press coverage, that could be being quoted in your local newspaper, perhaps writing a regular retirement column for your local newspaper, or writing a column for your local business journal. It could be getting national press, being quoted in the Wall Street Journal, being a Forbes contributor, getting visibility that way. It could be getting on TV, getting yourself on CNBC or Fox Business, or getting local segments on your local TV. Those are all areas of press coverage that help to accomplish earning third-party credibility. I touched on this a little bit, but published work is a way of generating third-party credibility. And we're in a very unique time right now when it comes to publishing work, where the media landscape itself has been evolving dramatically with the evolution of social media and digital communications and technology. And it's really transformed a lot of these newsrooms, where a lot of them are cutting back on their full-time staff and their paid staff, but as they're as the newsrooms are subtly shrinking, the demand for digital content is as big as it's ever been. So that creates a lot of opportunities for advisors, for people like you to come on as contributors, whether it's one-off articles or whether it's establishing yourself as a regular columnist somewhere. These editors are very eagerly looking for people like that. I know because I talk to these editors, and they're constantly looking for experts who can come in and offer compelling, interesting digital content that they can publish on their sites. So another area is awards and recognition. And for advisors, there are a lot of industry awards out there. But oftentimes those awards won't just come to you. You really need to have a strategy in place to get yourself nominated, to position yourself to win those awards and to be recognized for those awards. And then speaking engagements are another very popular way to earn third-party credibility. When you're selected to speak somewhere, whether it's at a university or whether it's at a large industry conference, a smaller seminar, when people select you as a speaker, they're essentially telling that group of attendees that you are an expert in your field. And it carries a lot of clout and credibility with it. So these are just some areas of third-party credibility in areas where you can specifically go to earn third-party credibility. So from there, we can move on to leveraging, earning press. So I talked a little bit about the different areas where you can earn third-party credibility. But when we talk about earning press, I think it's important to distinguish the various types of media. So if you look at the chart that we've got on this page, there are three main types of media. There's owned media, which is your website, your blog, white papers that you publish, newsletters that you distribute. These are all pieces of media that you create and you publish on your own channels that you own, like a website. And all of the ones that I just mentioned, are great vehicles for marketing. They're great vehicles for sharing thought leadership, for sharing your expertise and establishing yourself as a subject matter expert. Paid media is another one. When we're talking about paid media, we're talking about advertising. So different forms of advertising that are popular for advisors are print ads or commercials, advertorials. And if you're not familiar with that term, an advertorial is essentially it's a piece of content that's written for a magazine or a newspaper that reads like any story that would be in the publication, but it's a paid placement. So it's an advertisement that looks a lot like regular editorial content. That's an advertorial. And then paid per click advertising is another form of paid media. Then the last one that when we talk about third-party credibility, largely we're talking about earned media. When we're talking about earned media, we're talking specifically about public relations. So we're talking about a lot of the things that I previously covered: press coverage, broadcast appearances, people writing reviews about you, winning awards. Now, each one of these types of media carries value, but it's a different type of value. So when we're comparing earned media to paid media, I like to essentially say that with paid media, you're typically the static in between the content that people want to watch. When people are watching TV, they usually don't watch it for commercials. I mean, maybe during the Super Bowl, some people do, but by and large, when you're watching TV, you're going there for the shows or for the news or the content that you actually see. And the paid media is kind of that static. in between the content that you actually went to that channel to view. With earned media, you are the content that people are wanting to see. You are the news story. You are that expert, the insight, the person people want to look to. So from a credibility standpoint, earned media carries a lot more value than your paid media will, I mean, from a credibility standpoint, because viewers are smart. They can tell what's paid and what's not for the most part. So getting that earned media certainly makes you stand out. And in the same token, when we're comparing earned media to owned media, it's very similar in that if you're writing an article and publishing it on your blog, you can share thought leadership, you can give great advice, you can get yourself out there, but people know that you're the one publishing it, and people know anybody can publish whatever for the most part, whatever they want on their own blog. It's not hard to set up a blog and start publishing. But if you're writing that same article and getting it published in Forbes or in an industry publication, in your local paper, you're still getting that thought leadership out there, but you're getting a big chunk of credibility to go with it. So those are important distinctions to look at when you're comparing the various types of media out there. So if we go back up to the top, a lot of questions that I often get are with advisors is they'll say, well, PR sounds great, but we don't really do anything newsworthy. And I'll always come back to them and ask them, well, have you hired somebody recently? Have you opened an office? Do you have any anniversaries coming up? Do you have a unique perspective on a retirement topic or on an industry topic or whatever it might be? If you say yes to any of those, guess what? You're newsworthy. And every advisor I talk to some extent or another, is newsworthy. So the big thing is accepting that and realizing that you are doing newsworthy things on a regular basis, and you have newsworthy insights that you can share with the media. So becoming a trusted source or subject matter expert is a way of getting yourself in the news. Sharing thought leadership is a way of getting yourself in the news, and highlighting company announcements or ways to get yourself in the news. Benjamin Franklin has a great quote that really crafted a lot of my philosophy towards public relations. And he said, either write something worth reading or do something worth writing about. And it's as simple as that as far as getting yourself earning press and getting yourself press. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about doing something worth writing about, oftentimes that's going to be something that warrants a press release, where you opened a new office. When you opened an office, you did something worth writing about. There are local reporters who are going to be interested in that, who cover announcements like that on a regular basis. So by opening that office or bringing on a new partner to your team, or celebrating an anniversary, holding a big event, any of these things, these are all newsworthy things that people are interested in. Releasing a new product. It's all newsworthy things that are newsworthy, but they're not going to get covered unless you have a proactive strategy to get them covered. And then the first part of the Franklin quote, write something worth reading, that comes down to sharing thought leadership. And I talked about that a little bit earlier, where all of these newsrooms out there, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of these newsrooms out there are just so hungry for contributed content. So if you've got an interesting topic to write about, if you've got anecdotes to share, stories to share, that's newsworthy. I mean, there are publications out there who are looking for insight just like the type that you have to share, but they're often not going to come to you. You need to have a strategy in place, a plan in place to go to them and get that thought leadership in front of them.
Brian, is there a strategy you would recommend? Well, so when we're talking about earned media, mostly, for independent RIAs, do you recommend kind of starting local at local papers and establishing rapport there with local reporters before, taking on a Forbes or something like that? Or what are your strategy recommendations there?
That's a great question. I love that question. Oftentimes people think that local, because it's a smaller readership, it should be easier to get.
Mhm.
That's not always the case, actually. Local media can be a tough nut to crack. And one of the reasons is that depending on where you're located geographically, there might only be a couple of papers that people read. So you've got, even though it's smaller, and it seems like because it's smaller there's a better chance of getting in there, because there's a limited finite number of outlets and publications to get into there. It can be a little bit challenging. Another thing with local media is that they typically stay very focused with their coverage. So they're not going to, by and large, they're not going to be interested in larger stories, bigger national stories that you can share insight on, or other, maybe industry specific ideas, unless there's a very clear local angle to it. So
Mhm.
you've got to keep that in mind. You've got to keep in mind what they write about and what they might cover. So you can have a great estate planning topic that you think people in your area should read about, but unless you can connect the dots and give that a strong local angle, it's going to be a tough sell to them. So local media can be tough. National can be tough too. But one of the big things with national news, even though it's huge and it looks intimidating when you're looking at the Wall Street Journal or Forbes or any number of these other widely read national publications. The one of the things that makes it a little bit easier actually to get in with them is they've got a ton of reporters, and reporters that cover very niche topics. So while your business editor or your lifestyle editor at your local paper might not be interested in that estate planning topic that you have in mind, there are, each of these bigger publications probably have a writer or several writers who are have a niche focus on those particular topics.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind too. It's all about what the publication covers and getting in there. Now, what I will say, back to your original question, is that when you're building your media profile, it's just like building any other expertise or any other, look at it like building a resume. Typically in the beginning, if you've done zero press, the Wall Street Journal is not just going to come find you and want to talk to you. But if you start off, perhaps contributing to some blogs that are widely read in the industry, and then leveraging that maybe to get a role writing for your local paper, then you can take that and you can continue to build. Each opportunity can build to the next one until the point where you are drawing interest from other publications. I often say media gets media. And it's so true. I mean, I can't say that enough because it's just a fact. That's how it works. Media gets media. So in the beginning, you might want to start with some smaller blogs and whatnot, but you can build upon each one to the next one. Same goes with awards too. When with awards, after you get that first award, the rest are a lot easier to get, because you have that previous award as credibility that you can leverage to prove that you should be considered for the next one. All of these things build upon another. And that's why when you're looking at public relations, you really want to look at it from a long-term strategy. Because if you continue to make it a part of your brand and who you are, what you do, and continue to build to more prominent placements, one opportunity to the next, that's where you can build that momentum and really build up a strong media profile.
Great.
So let's go on to talking about leveraging press. So we talked about how the different ways that you can earn press for yourself to get third-party credibility. But if you earn it and don't have a plan in place to leverage it, you're probably not going to see a ton of value from it. And let me break that down for you. And first, I think we want to talk about one of the biggest problems that the advisors that come to me and that I talk to often have, and it's marketing fragmentation. So I'll talk to advisors who will throw some money at advertising, and maybe they've dabbled in PR. They've tried doing it themselves, or they've brought on a consultant or whatnot. And then they've got their own marketing. They've got their email marketing, their website, maybe they've got different people running these different things. But what often happens is that, if they're throwing money at advertising and working with a publication who's mapping out their advertising strategy, they might not know what's going on with the website, or they might not know what's going on with PR. So you've got these time investments and these money investments in different areas of bringing your brand, but the right hand often doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And it's a big problem for a lot of the advisors that I talk to. But when you've got integration, that's when you can really build synergy with all of these. So when your web team is working with your PR team and is aware of what's going on, and you've got steady communication between them, and advertising becomes a part of that as well. When everything's working together and you've got integration, that's where you can really make this work and really get the most value out of these various initiatives. So when we talk about leveraging press, essentially it's taking that PR, all of that earned press that you have, and bringing it into your marketing strategy. And it's so important. PR and marketing should never be siloed off from one another. They have to be working together, or you're never going to maximize the value of all of that effort that you put into getting press in the first place. So traditional ways of leveraging press are ordering reprints for your sales kits. I know a lot of the people listening here have sales kits. They've got folders that they'll take to prospect meetings and other forms of press kits, maybe a digital or the sales kits, maybe a digital sales kit that they'll move around. That's got a fact sheet on the company and various distinguishers in there. But one of the things that's available when you are quoted in the Wall Street Journal, or when you do write an article for the local paper, is oftentimes those publications will allow you to order a stack of reprints from them. And you can then take those reprints and put them right in your sales kit, so that the person's reading through your whatever marketing materials you have in there, where you're telling them how great you are and how great your firm is. But then they see that Wall Street Journal article in this sales kit, and perhaps your picture on it, or your byline in the local paper, and it's going to stand out to them. It's getting that third-party credibility, that element, into your marketing process and into your business development process. You can get reprints and frame them in your office. So if the local paper did a profile on you, you absolutely want to get a reprint of that and frame it, so that when people come to visit you in your office, perhaps they're sitting there waiting for you to wrap up a meeting, or they're sitting down in your office chit-chatting, they're going to glance up and they're going to see your face on the paper. And that carries a lot of credibility. I mean, it really maximizes the value of that PR placement that you've got. You can highlight your press and mailers and newsletters. If you do a quarterly newsletter, you can put a little blurb in there. Check out my regular retirement column in the local paper. Or you can say, this quarter we were featured in various publications. These are all ways that you can incorporate your PR success into your more traditional marketing tactics. And then when we talk about modern methods for leveraging press, We're talking about a lot of the things that you can do online, oftentimes either for free or very cheaply, to maximize the visibility of your press placements and to leverage them directly to your intended audience. So, and when we're talking about this, it's very important to realize that when you are quoted in somewhere like the Wall Street Journal, if you're serving a local market, I mean, how many of them are going to find that article on their own and read it and say, oh wow, I'm going to call this person, or just find it on their own when they're doing research on you. And maybe they do, but probably not. But if you're putting it up on your website and putting an in the news banner on your website, or a press page on your website, then after you've met that person and they go to your website and start learning more about you, they're going to see it. So it's absolutely crucial that the website is a big part of your strategy for leveraging press. Sharing them on social media. When you're quoted in these articles and featured in these articles, when you win awards, you absolutely want to get it out on your social media pages, because that's going to funnel that press that you got specifically to your network. So when you're quoted in an article and then you post it on LinkedIn, it's going to be available to your whole network. And your whole network is probably going to be business associates, prospects, current clients, all the people that you want to see that you are in the press. You've got these social media platforms where you can make that happen. So it's very important that that's a big part of it. And then you can send your media hits to your email lists. So, perhaps every quarter you just send out an in the news email blast that lists, the top 4 or 5 articles that you were quoted in or that you wrote. That's another way that you can funnel all of this PR success directly to your target markets. Now, Amanda, I know when we talk about the different things you can do on your website, I know that's right up your alley of expertise. So did you want to share any additional insight or thoughts there?
Yeah, I did want to chime in on that, talking about these more modern or digital methods to sharing your press and leveraging it. We're seeing, here at 20 over 10, working with financial advisors on developing their websites, we're seeing a ton more and more advisors, creating dedicated press or media pages on their website, which, kind of just lists out some of those press hits and highlights them. But, I think doing this, like Brian mentioned, builds your credibility, but in a way it also helps with the search optimization for your website as you're linking back to some of those online press hits, and vice versa. If you had coverage on a local website, and they're linking back to your website, those types of things definitely help with your search engine ranking. So we're seeing a ton more advisors do this, creating those dedicated landing pages for their press hits. And I think it's, something that's becoming a lot more popular.
Totally. And, a big thing with this, when you make PR a regular part of your brand and how you go about business and your business development practices, what it does is it allows you to make your website very much living rather than a static website. If you've got a system in place where you're getting 2, 3, 4 pieces of press every month and have a system to upload all of those to your website, then every time somebody visits your website, there's going to be new content there for them to view. And when you work that strategy into a current blogging system, or perhaps you have an event calendar that you keep alive, you're going to add so many different living elements to your website to make sure that each month when somebody visits, there's going to be something new that they can learn there, something new that they can see there. Another reason why you're different from your competition, who have that one and done static website that hasn't changed, in the past year. Yours is constantly going to be evolving and adding new elements and adding new pieces of credibility. So it's so important to build a system like that.
Great point.
So let's go on to implementing a PR strategy. So what I want to do here is really bring everything together and talk about how you can make PR work for you, how, actionable steps that you can take to make this happen, to be that local celebrity, who is getting on local TV and getting in the local papers and getting national press and getting awards. So one of the first things that you want to do before spending an ounce of energy, time, or money in a PR strategy is clearly identify what your goals and expectations are. And I can't stress that enough. It's so, so, so important to know your goals and know what you want to get out of a PR campaign. So I have some people come to me and they say, Brian, I really just want to go with the bucket list strategy. And by bucket list, they want to get that one quote in the Wall Street Journal, that one quote in Barron's, that one quote in Kiplinger. They want to really check off some of these boxes so that they can get these up on their website, usually in the form of an as featured in banner, so that when somebody goes to their homepage, boom, they're going to see these logos on their website. They're going to know that that person has credibility because they've been quoted in these places. And that's great. And if that's their goal, is just the press itself, getting that up on their website, then I'll lay out a plan for them and we go about making that happen. But other people have different expectations. They might want PR to be a way to generate more web traffic. Amanda touched on boosting your SEO. Absolutely. They might have other, more tangible goals that they want to get out of PR beyond just the branding and exposure. And then we put together comprehensive plans to make that happen as well. So before you jump into a PR strategy, what you want to accomplish with it, and you've got to be able to set very realistic expectations for yourself and an action plan that's going to give you a chance to achieve those goals. Committing to a long-term plan is the next bullet I have here. And that's important too. Some people will jump into a PR campaign and they'll get a couple months into it. Maybe they'll be doing it themselves. Maybe they'll work with a consultant to drum up some PR. And maybe they've had a few placements and they say, well, it didn't work. Nobody called me. So I'm going to just go spend money on advertising now, or I'm going to go spend money on this or that. And it cracks me up when advisors do that, because how often do you tell your clients to look at things long term? Don't expect instant results. If you're invested in a fund and the returns are a bit stagnant, you wouldn't advise them, okay, it's time to jump shift. Let's try a different investment strategy. I mean, you put in place a strategy for them, set expectations over the long term, and then execute upon that strategy. That's what you've got to do with PR if you wanted to build long-term success for your practice. If you're going to throw a little bit of money at PR and then jump to throwing money into advertising in a couple months and this and that, and a lot of advisors do that, then you're probably not going to have a lot of success with any of them. So if you have decided that PR is right for you, again, go back, set your goals, set your expectations, create a plan, but be ready to commit to that plan and have a long-term vision in place for that plan. And then the third bullet is seeking expert advice. Some people, and I know a lot of advisors who do their own PR and are superstars at it. They're just very much marketing minded. They attract press. They don't even have to work that hard. I mean, some advisors out there are just magnets for press. And now they work for, they do what they've got to do to get there, and they've got some experience and they've educated themselves to a point where they can adequately do it themselves. Most advisors, though, don't have time to do it themselves, wouldn't even have any idea how to go about doing it themselves, or just have no interest in doing it themselves. And since most of them fall in that bucket, what they want to do at that point is look for guidance that can get them on the right track. And there's a lot of options out there. Again, do-it-yourself is certainly one of them. Although I always warn people with the do-it-yourself strategy. I say, you can do it if you're trying to save money. Yes, you can do it yourself, and you can save money. Yeah, you can cut your own hair too if you want to save money. But at the end of the day, you're going to look like you cut your own hair. So that's kind of the analogy I like to throw out there when people are saying, well, should I spend money on it? Should I just do it myself? It's going to take, if you're doing it yourself, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take effort. It's probably going to take some frustration if it's something that you're not experienced in. And it might not yield the results that you want. But if you really are committed to it and have decided that you do need help, there's various different ways that you can get help. There are consultants out there, there are freelancers out there that you can talk to. If you want to take it to the next steps, there's agencies like Flackable, the one that I run, who focus on this. There are a lot of different options out there for you. And it's really about finding the right partner who's going to fit your brand, your culture, who's got a reputation for driving results, who understands your industry, especially being in a highly regulated industry. That is so important that when you do find a partner, it's somebody who really understands your business and your business goals and the regulatory hurdles that come with your business. So those are all different things that you want to analyze when choosing who might be the right partner to move forward with. And when we talk about PR, oftentimes people just look at it from a business development standpoint. So opening new pipelines for growth, getting yourself in front of your new audiences or key audiences, helping to convert new business opportunities. When they go to your website and see some of those logos on it, it is going to separate you from the competition and absolutely plays a role in helping to improve the amount of business that you are able to convert. But that's not the only benefit that you get from it. Engaging in PR can really change a company's culture, and it can enhance your culture. It can enhance your morale. If you've got the whole team participating in this, and you've got multiple people who are now talking to the press as experts and getting quoted in there, that's something that they're proud of, and they should be proud of it. When you're able to share on social media the big feature you got in your local paper, your team's going to get excited about that. They're going to be proud of it. They're going to share it online as well and get engaged with it. So that's a big boost that you get just from within your own company and its culture and the morale of your team. There are a lot of big benefits from it. Luring and retaining talent. Just like when your team's getting out there and getting excited about the press that you're getting, people who are considering other firms to join are looking at that stuff too. So just like a prospective client might look at your website if they're thinking about working with you and be impressed by some of the press recognition that you've gotten, so will a candidate that you're trying to recruit, a potential tuck-in advisor that you're looking at. That it can really distinguish your brand from some of the competitors' brands that they might also be looking at. And especially if you're looking at recruiting advisors from big firms, they know that when they leave those big firms, they're losing a lot of that brand recognition and credibility. So if they're going to leave a big firm for a smaller RIA, if you're able to show them that you've built your own credibility and you've built a compelling brand and that you are relevant and that you are attracting press, it's going to alleviate a lot of those hesitations that they might have. And there have been studies about this and surveys about this. It really does play a role in helping to bring on some of the best talent in your business. And then I touched on this earlier. Media gets media. So when you start getting some PR action and success, it's going to open the door for more media. It's not just regular readers who are reading these articles. It's editors, it's producers. It's other media people read what each other are writing. So if you write an op-ed and a big producer reads it, loves it, there's a very good chance that they could want to bring you on TV to talk about it. So that it's just another benefit that you get from making this a part of your strategy. So from there, I think we can jump right into questions.
Great. Yeah, definitely encourage. We've got, 15 minutes or so left. So I definitely want to encourage anyone to, post some questions in the chat panel or in the Q&A box while we have this time with Brian to leverage his expertise. So pop those questions in there and we'll get them answered for you. I don't see any coming in right now, Brian, but I had one for you, and it's one that we, get a lot here at 20 over 10 from advisors we work with. And what is your take on, so I don't know exactly what you would call them, but those email listservs like Harrow and Help a Reporter Out, responding to those types of reporter requests. What is your take on that?
It can be a great way to get started. No doubt about it. Now, with those, there is a lot of work. If you want to go about a do-it-yourself strategy and subscribe to one of those and monitor them, I mean, keep in mind you're going to need to read through a lot of irrelevant opportunities before you find one that might be a good fit and pursue. Also, keep in mind that sometimes with those, they're getting a lot of people sharing insight for it. So there's a good chance that you could write up a big contribution for one of those, and the reporter already or the editor already got the insight they need and didn't even read your emails. So with those, I mean, you can find some gems with those. But there's going to be a lot of work, and some of that work is going to go unfulfilled because for one reason or another. But no, I think for anybody who wants to dip their toes in the water and figure out if they enjoy interacting with the press or if they can have some success there, I don't see any harm in trying it yourself. No doubt about it.
Okay, great. We did have one question come in from a participant just kind of asking about, how do you price, getting PR help, and how do you put a price tag on something like that?
Yeah, so there are different types of pricing structures if you're looking at going beyond the do-it-yourself and working with a consultant or working with an agency. Consultants' prices are going to range. I mean, you might have a local generalist consultant who might just bill per hour. And that can range if they're billing per hour. Gosh, I wouldn't. I mean, it would really vary from one to the other. But you might be able to find PR help with a local generalist consultant for anywhere from $1,000 a month, maybe at the low end, to $2,500, $3,000 at the higher end. When you're looking at agencies, most agencies work on retainer, and with that, you'll be looking at usually around $2,000 at the low end. At the higher end, they can get pretty high. You can see, I'd say $2,000 to $8,000 for like a smaller mid-sized agency is probably about right. When you're talking about those big New York agencies, that's when you're getting into 15 plus grand a month, which obviously for it wouldn't make a lot of sense for most advisors to even look at.
Okay, great. There's any other questions, again, please, feel free to put them in the chat box or the Q&A panel, and we'll be sure to address those within these last few minutes. We have Mark asking, might be a little bit out of context from this presentation, but what are some suggestions on things RIAs should be focusing on to get on the ranking list like Barron's or Forbes?
Yes, great question. Yeah, so some of them they all look at various qualifiers to get you considered. Assets under management is usually going to be one of them when we're looking at, especially the Barron's list. And that's something that you can't really fluff up. It is what it is. But assets under management, if yours is up there, you can look at the AUM of some of the other people who've made it, and if you're in that range, then yeah, you probably have a real shot at it. If not, I mean, not all of them look at that necessarily. And Forbes has some that don't put a ton of focus just on AUM. They'll look at other factors. I know Forbes recently came out with a Rising Stars list for advisors 35 and under. And with that one, there's a lot of other things that can qualify you for it, not just AUM. But they're all going to vary a little bit. And AUM is going to be a big one. Other press recognition is going to be a big one. For any of these awards lists, they typically like to see that you've had previous recognition, and whether that's getting recognized in your local business journal. If you're going for that Forbes advisors 35 and under, and you've already been a 40 under for your local business journal, that's something that you can definitely leverage, and it's going to make you stand out. Those are a few of the things that you want to keep in mind when applying for those. And also a big one that I didn't mention is just getting yourself nominated in the first place. Because for a lot of those, they're not going to come and find you. You need to proactively go out there, reach out to them, and then they'll send you, typically, if you're interested, they'll either publish it, what you need to qualify, or if you're able to get in touch with the editors who are producing the list, they'll tell you what you need to qualify or what they're looking for to give you a good chance at qualifying.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Mark. And two, Brian, would you say that, local, there's also lists you might want to look into with like your business journals? A lot of business journals, I think, tend to run lists like 40 under 40 and things like that. Would you say?
Totally. No, the awards can really be game changers. The local awards for sure, the national awards. It takes you to a new level of prestige and recognition when you're able to win one of those, and that's something that once you've won it, you always have it. When you win that 40 under 40 award, you can mount that award, put it up on your office. And that's something that even when, if you win a 40 under 40, when you're 50 and 60, you've still got that 40 under 40 award. Nobody can take that from you. So, yes, there's a ton of value in those. Myself, I practice what I preach, and I can tell you that some of the 30 unders and 40 unders that I've won have been huge for us. I still have people talk about them and ask about them who've seen them and who were really impressed by them. So it's definitely a way to distinguish yourself. And if you've identified awards as something you absolutely want to work into your branding and marketing, what I suggest is that you sit down and think of the various spaces where you could be recognized. So by spaces, you want to look at your industry and spend some time on Google and just start Googling and looking at some of the various industry awards that could make sense for you. Then take it to the next step and look at what else you might be able to win. Obviously, local awards, where it's not just advisors that you're competing with, but it's other business people and business owners in your area. And then put together a list of those that you want to key in on. And then you can take it a step further. If you're very involved with your community, look at some of the community awards and the charitable giving awards that are available out there. I mean, those have a huge impact on your brand as well. You can look at your alma mater. A lot of universities will recognize prominent alumni. So look at the various awards that you can win from your alma mater, and that can be huge.
Mhm.
for building your visibility within that. But once you've got those lists of the awards that you want to key in on, go back then and whether you use a spreadsheet or a Word doc, however you want to organize it, go back and make sure that you know when these awards open, when they close. If you're like me, you're going to want to set calendar reminders for yourself, because I can't function without calendar reminders. So once I've got a list like that, I'm plugging it into my calendar so that I get that alert the day that one of these awards opens. And we do this for our clients too, of course, so that the day that these things open, we're on it and we're getting our nomination forms in there. The early birds really do often get the worm with these as well. Keep that in mind. So you want to, when these things open, you want to get your nomination in there. You want to be one of the first that they see. And that's a way that you can really give yourself a chance to win it.
Great. Well, I know we've only got just a few minutes left. We did have one more question come in, Brian. What one or two things would you recommend, folks should look for when they decide, to hire a PR firm?
Definitely look for somebody who's going to be a fit from an energy perspective, from a culture perspective. You want somebody who you like and would enjoy working with. You want somebody on your wavelength. So just talk to them. And not necessarily, obviously you want to talk about your business goals and whatnot, but really feel them out as a person. Try to get a feel for how they think, how they interact, how they view their job. Do they enjoy what they do? That those can be big difference makers. You want somebody who's passionate about what they do and somebody who's going to be passionate about you and your brand, because this is the representative who's going to the press and getting them excited about you. So you need somebody who's going to be excited, be enthusiastic about your brand. That's how they're going to sell it to these producers and these editors and these reporters. So that's a big thing. And I really do think having that industry expertise is so important. I mean, you don't want somebody who will work with, but they'll also work with the diner across the street. I mean, you really want somebody specialized in your industry. It's so important.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's super helpful. Great. Well, thanks everyone for sending in your questions. Just as a reminder, this presentation has been recorded, so we'll be emailing it out to everyone who's registered tomorrow. We've got up here on the screen now our contact information for both Brian and myself. So if you have questions after today's webinar, definitely please feel free to reach out via email or via phone. Brian is your guy to answer any public relations questions, press, publicity. And if you have any questions about 20 over 10, getting a website set up, or anything with your digital marketing strategy, social media, SEO, I will be your person, and my contact information is on your screen as well. Brian, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we sign off today?
No, I really just wanted to thank everybody for joining. I hope this was helpful. If you want to learn more, definitely feel free to visit our website. I do have some ebooks available for download on the website. One goes over this topic a lot. It's called Turning Press into Profits. I definitely recommend giving that a look. We also have an ebook available called SEO for Financial Advisors. So anybody looking to rank higher in Google, definitely give that a read. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. Shoot me a message if you have any questions I didn't answer. But again, I just want to thank everybody for joining.
Yeah, thank you again, everybody, for joining today. I've just popped those ebook download links in the chat box, so definitely take a look at those ebooks from Flackable. And thanks again for joining. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day, and we'll see you on our next webinar. Bye, everybody.